Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to show you how we took this dated 1970s dresser, kind of gave it a more modern feel. So I'm going to show you a little bit on the DIY, how I did it. Then Heather's going to come in and use her skills and show you how to style the heck out of it. So stay tuned. Now some of the tools and supplies that I'm going to use for this process is a palm sander. With this sander I have on it 150 grit sandpaper. We'll use this to get the majority of the paint off the piece. After that, we will use some stripper, and we'll apply the stripper with a really cheap chip brush. This will allow us to get the stripper in the little nooks and crannies and detail to get some of the paint off there that we can't reach with the sander. We also will use some steel wool. This is quadruple zero steel wool, which is the finest they have. You could use something else. This is just what I had on hand, so this is what I'll use to kind of help scrub the stripper out, scrub the stripper to get the paint out of the little grooves on there. So, all right, now that we have our piece ready, we have all our tools, now we're gonna get to work. The first thing we wanna do is remove the hardware from the piece. We'll set the hardware to the side, and we're gonna paint this later, so we'll go over that process. All right, so now I'm gonna take my palm sander, I'm going to sand over the piece and try to get as much paint off as I can. And you can see there's still a lot of paint in the little detailed edges right here, and that's what we're going to want to get out with the stripper. I'm using a stripper I got at Home Depot. It's clean strip, it says fast strip in 15 minutes. So what I'll do is just pour a little bit of it on here, use my chip brush, and I'm just going pretty much in the details around the edge where my sander wasn't able to get that paint out of there. All right, now we've let our piece sit for about 10-15 minutes, and I'm going to put my gloves on and then get the stripper off. Anytime you deal with stripper, you do want to wear gloves. So this is where you can use the steel wool. Take your steel wool and you can get it in there to kind of scrub some more of that paint out, and it will start scrubbing. See right there, and you can get a lot of that paint out with the steel wool. Now that we have our piece stripped, we're going to go ahead and apply the whitewash finish on there. And the tools we're going to use for that are the supplies. I'm going to use a paint. The paint I'm using is a vintage furniture paint. The company is Maison Blanche. The color is Maison White. It is a mineral-based paint containing chalk. It's a type of paint that doesn't require any kind of priming prep before. So the color of that is Maison White. I'm going to use this little Purdy brush is the brand, little angle brush. This is what I'm going to use to apply the paint to the piece. You're going to want a rag, you're going to want a damp rag, because as we apply the paint, we're going to wipe it off. Then we're also, once we're done whitewashing the piece, we're going to go over and kind of do a little bit of like this kind of white looking splatter kind of look to it, just to give it a little more dimension, kind of this layered look, and not just one little, you know, kind of one-dimensional whitewash piece. Now we're ready to go ahead and apply our whitewash finish to the piece. And I have my damp rag here. It's pretty wet because we're going to apply the paint and then we're going to wipe off the excess paint. So what I'm going to do, I always like to use the lid of my paint can, and I'll show you why. Because we're going to do almost like a little bit of a dry brush finish. I just barely dampen the edge of my brush with paint. It's not soaked. I just kind of dip the tips of the bristles in there, and then I'll hit it on the top of the paint lid to get a lot of the excess paint off. I'm not wanting to put a ton of paint on there. I don't want to paint the piece. I just want to apply almost like a dry brush coat to it. We're going to apply the paint. What I'm going to do is just kind of a thin coat. You can see right here. So say I just want some of the white paint up here in the corner. So I'll apply that. I'll immediately come back with my wet rag and just wipe off. And you can wipe off, you know, kind of as little or as much as you want. So, and I like that. What I want to go for, I want areas that have more white paint than others. So I might put it a little heavier here in the corner, maybe have it not so heavy here in the center, and a couple other heavier spots in it. So what I'll do is continue to work my way around the piece by applying the paint, kind of heavy in spots. You could do it, lighter in some other spots. But you can see I'm not painting it, I'm just kind of dry brushing it on there. It's not a really heavy coat. And then you immediately want to come back with your wet rag and wipe it off. Now that we have dry brushed our entire piece, the whole dresser and all 9 drawers, we're going to go back and add in some of this texture to our piece. When I do a piece, I like to add as much texture in layers, kind of the layered paint look as I can. Just provide some more dimension and not just this piece that's just flat painted. Now to achieve that weathered, kind of aged look that I showed you in the video, we're going to use the brush I showed you earlier, and this is just a flat, any kind of flat bristle brush will work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take quite a bit of paint on just a different regular brush, and I'm going to apply it, just dab it on the top of my flat brush, just like this. So I'm loading up this brush with paint, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to dab straight down and come straight back up. So I'm applying the paint straight up and straight back, or straight down and straight back up, and I'm also turning it as I apply the paint. So I'm not getting this kind of splat, like the exact same look. By turning it, you kind of give some variation in your pattern so it doesn't look like you just had a brush and just pounce the brush down, in 5 or 6 spots on the table. All right, I'm going to show you one more time on a drawer front how I did a kind of age white spots. I'm going to go ahead and get my paintbrush, load up my flat brush with paint on the top. I'll go ahead and dab down in a few spots. So I'm turning this brush, and I want there to be a lot of paint. I want some of these sections when I pounce down to be thick. I mean, you can tell, it's hard to tell on the camera, and I'm sure this looks kind of splotchy. It's hard to tell on the camera, but you want it to be thick in those spots, because that's where I want it to dry around it, so I can come back and wipe off the big blob, and that's what's going to give us this spot with nothing in the center. So just dab that on and let it dry for probably just a minute or two. All right, now that we've let it dry for a few minutes, I can kind of in person here can kind of start to see that it's drying around the outside of the little spots on here. So now I'll take my rag, and this is a dry rag because I don't want to take off too much. And you can kind of test an area if you'd like. That's perfect. It's just what I want. So I'll go ahead and wipe the rest. And what's kind of cool about this too is the areas around, the paint that I am wiping off that is still wet, it kind of rubs in and then kind of blends the two together. So here's a close-up shot where you can get an idea of what the texture looks like. All right, now that we're finished with our painting, we're going to turn our attention to the hardware. Right here you're seeing a before and after, with the top being the before and the darker one being the after. So now I'm going to show you how we achieved this look. The paint we're going to be using is wrought iron is the color, and it's Maison Blanche vintage furniture paint. So we want to shake it up. I've already done so. Alright, so right now I'll give you a little bit more close-up shot of the hardware. So I'm pretty much just dabbing it on there. It's nothing very fancy. I don't want 100% coverage. I want it to have this old, worn look. It's really quick. You can kind of see, and that would be it. After I finished painting the hardware, I attached it all back to the drawers, so that pretty much finishes up the paint portion of this dresser. Now we're going to bring Heather in and let her give you some tips and ideas on how she likes to style it.
Hi guys, I'm back here to style this piece for you guys. We started today with this really great cloth, and we're going to use that as our focal point. We stayed in the same color family, so it's going to be like a tone-on-tone, color blacking type look. We're going to pair these lamps on either side for a more traditional look. The light is really great to use just because it draws your eye in. Then I'm going to take this olive bucket. We use a lot of vintage. We're an antique store, so we really like vintage things. This is an olive bucket from Europe, and it's great to use for extra pillows and blankets. Now that we have the bigger pieces in place, we're going to come in with some smalls to accessorize and make it just feel a little more homey. I'm just going to use a couple of books here. Got some plants, bring some life into your space. They're not real because we don't always water. And so we do good with the fake stuff. And you know, now we have 3 plants out there, just kind of odd numbers a lot of times look good. And then a ring dish or something that, you know, you can use to put your keys or jewelry. I hope that gave you some information on how you can decorate your space and make it your own.
If you like more stuff like this, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be uploading a lot of videos on DIY furniture makeovers. We're going to do some vlogging on the road as we pick. We're also pickers. We do shows. We're going to do some behind the scenes vlogging stuff. Just try to make it real fun and personal, kind of give you some behind the scenes stuff. Also in the comment section, if there's any videos you would like to see in particular, put that in the comment section and we'll see what we can do. Hey, and thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how we took this ordinary side table and transformed it into a piece that has a lot more character, kind of an old world layered paint look. I'm also going to reveal one of my secrets to creating a